Ah, e aí, pessoal? O YouTube fez o favor de dar copyright na live 18 por uma música que nem foi lançada pelo Juice WRLD. Os caras monetizaram. Ah, não, mano. Esse aqui foi da live 6. Ô, louco. É suave, então. Bom, hoje a live vai ser uns 20, 30 minutos rapidão. Porque eu tô cansado demais. Então eu vou ficar vendo uns vídeos aqui. De programação, óbvio. Tem que fazer login, não. Ah, tá bem. É...
Alright, let's do this thing, everybody. Today we're talking about enums. Enums is short for enumerations. They're a special kind of class. They represent a fixed set of constants. By using enums, they improve code readability and are easy to maintain. One of the major benefits of enums is that they're more efficient with switches when comparing strings. So basically, an enum is a special kind of class where we declare constants. Here's a demonstration. We're going to create a new class. File, New, Java class. We're going to select enum. Enum is a special kind of class, sort of like how an interface is a special kind of class. We will create an enum of day. Public enum day. Within this Java class, we can declare some constants. What we're going to write is enum constants. A common convention for these constants is that all the letters are uppercase. So after the enum constant, we'll add a set of parentheses, then associate this constant with the value. So let's say that we're working with days of the week. Sunday will be the first day of the week. Sunday will have a value of 1. Let's do this with the other days of the week. Monday, parentheses, then a value. Monday will be the second day of the week. Then we'll just follow this pattern. End all these constants with a semicolon. Alright, we have our enum constants. They have values 1 through 7. We're receiving some warnings here. Expected 0 arguments but 1 found. What we need to do is create a constructor. A constructor for our day class. When we define these enum constants, we're automatically going to call the constructor for this enum class, and then pass in this value. Let's create a field of day number for days of the week. We'll make these values private. We'll use the private access modifier. We don't want the ability to change them. We'll make them final. These are integers, that's the data type. We'll name these values day number. When we define these enum constants, we're automatically going to call the constructor and then pass in this value to the constructor. For the parameters, we'll have int, then our field of day number. This dot day number equals the day number that we receive. If you would like, you can add a getter method to actually get the day number. We'll use the public access modifier. We're returning an integer. We'll define a method of get day number. And we will return our field of this dot day number. Alright, and we have set up our enum class. Reading and understanding these enum constants is a lot easier than these numbers. If I was looking at the number 5, I would have trouble understanding that that means Thursday. Now, how do we work with these enum constants exactly? Here's how. Within our main Java file, we will create a day object by using this enum class. Let me delete this. Day, day, rather than saying new day and then passing in a number like 1, there's a different approach. We will access the day class, dot, and then specify a constant, a day of the week. Let's say Sunday. Remember that this is all caps. Our day is an object. Let's output our day and see what it outputs. This will output Sunday, all caps. If you would rather get the day number, the value that's associated with this enum constant, then we can use that getter method. Day.getDayNumber. So we have Sunday and 1. Where this is really going to be helpful is when working with switches. Here's a demonstration. We will actually use an enhanced switch. What are we examining? We're examining our day object. If our day matches a case of Monday, now this isn't a string. If this were a string, we would enclose this within a set of quotes. But using enums within a switch is actually faster than using strings. If it's Monday, then we'll output the following. We'll use an arrow, because this is an enhanced switch. Then we'll output, it is a weekday. Then if we have a case of Tuesday, let me just copy this. Tuesday will also output, it is a weekday. You can actually combine these cases together too. You just have to comma separate them. So case Monday, comma Tuesday, do this. Then let's do this with the other days of the week. Just for readability, I'll put these on new lines, each of these cases. So we have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. These are all the weekdays, Monday through Friday. Then if we have case Saturday, then it's the weekend. Case Saturday, we'll do the following. Output, it is the weekend. And we will also add a case for Sunday. So currently our day is Sunday. That will output, it is the weekend. If it were, let's say, Wednesday, then instead we output, it is a weekday. If we were comparing strings, all these cases would be enclosed within a set of double quotes, kind of like this. But we don't need to do that. It's actually more efficient to use enums. For some practice, what we'll do this time is accept some user input. We'll need a scanner. Scanner, scanner, equals new scanner. Pass in system.in. Import this class. Be sure to close your scanner because I tend to forget. Scanner.close. Then we'll need a prompt. We will output the following. We'll use print rather than print line. Enter a day of the week. We will create a string variable, let's say response, equals, use our scanner, call the next line method. All these constants are uppercase. We'll method chain the to uppercase method to make our user input uppercase. When creating a day object, by using the enum class, we will use our response. We will use the value of method, and then pass in our response. Now we should be able to type in a day. Enter a day of the week. I will type Monday. It is a weekday. Let's run this again. I will type Sunday. It is the weekend. What if we type in a day that doesn't exist, like pizza day? Well, we get an exception, an illegal argument exception. We can catch that exception using a try and catch block. Any dangerous code we're going to enclose within a try block. We will try this dangerous code. And catch any exceptions. We will catch that illegal argument exception, which we will name E. If the user input doesn't match one of these enums, then we'll output the following. Please enter a valid day. Let's try it again. Enter a day of the week. Let's try Tuesday. It is a weekday. Saturday. It is the weekend. Pizza day. Please enter a valid day. Pizza day is not one of our enums, but if we wanted to change it so it was, we can add that. Pizza day will be the 8th day of the week. At least it should be. We'll need a case for pizza day. Pizza day will also be part of the weekend. That just makes sense to me. Alright, let's try that again. Enter day of the week. Pizza day. It is the weekend, alright. Alright everybody, so those are enums, meaning enumerations. They're a special kind of class, kind of like how interfaces are a special kind of class. They represent a fixed set of constants. They improve code readability and reliability, and where they're really useful is when working with switches, because when working with switches, using enums is faster than strings. If I wasn't using enum constants, I could use integers, which are also efficient. But as a programmer, this is way less readable for me. At first glance, I would have no idea what these numbers are. But if they're enum constants, this is perfectly readable to me. These are days of the week. That makes sense. And well, everybody, those are enums in Java. Hey, how's it going everybody? It's your bro here, hope you're doing well, and in this video we're going to be discussing enums in Java, and at the end of this video we're going to be creating a project where we will prove that Pluto is in fact a planet. Before you reach the end of this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that we together can challenge and defeat the mighty YouTube algorithm. Welcome back. We're going to be discussing enums. So enum is short for the word enumerated, which is basically defined as some sort of ordered listing of items within a collection. Now in Java, when we create enums, they are constants. They cannot change, nor do we want them to be able to be changed. So a few examples that come to mind would be days of the week, months in the year, and for my demonstration, planets in our solar system. So it's a listing of constants, but they behave similarly to objects. Now, there's two ways which we can create enums. They are created similarly to classes. So the first way, outside of your main class, this is what we're going to type. We're going to type in enum and a name for this enum. So the name should be descriptive of the constants that it contains. So if we're going to create constants of planets in the solar system, we can call this maybe planet, and then a set of curly braces. The other way is that if you want this on a separate file, what you'll do is go to, well, this is assuming you're using the Eclipse IDE, go to File, New, and then enum right here. But for simplicity, I'm just going to keep this all within the same file. So now, with our enum, this is what we can do. We can list some constants. So we can begin listing some planets. So one common practice for listing constants in enums is that you want to be sure that all the letters are uppercase. So if we are going to list some planets, for example Mercury, we'll want to be sure to make this all uppercase. So let's begin listing the planets in the solar system. So Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Okay, fine, I'll spell it right. Uranus, Neptune, and we'll say Pluto's a planet. He's always left out. Okay, so these are the constants in our enum of planet. For the record, I just added a quick comment here that says an enum is a grouping of constants that behave similarly to objects. Now, what I'm thinking we can do for a project is that we will create a program where we can check to see if one of these planets is habitable. And as of the filming of this video, only Earth is currently habitable. All the other planets are uninhabitable. Well, except for Mars, we're pretty close. Come on, Elon Musk, what's taking so long? Now, what we'll do is that we'll instantiate an instance of our enum planet, and this is very similar to instantiating an object. So we're going to type in the name of our enum, so planet. We need a name for this instance, so I'll call this my planet equals, and you remember with instantiating objects, we would say something such as equals new, the name of the class, then a set of parentheses. Well, what we do instead for enums is that we type in equals the name of our enum, so planet, dot, and then we can select one of these constants. So let's say Earth, and then semicolon. So this is valid. Now, if we selected a constant that wasn't within our enum, let's say sun. We don't have sun as a constant. Well, you can see that we're getting an error now, and it says a quick fix is that we can create enum constant sun within planet, but that wouldn't fit. So that's the great thing with enums. We can only select one of these constants within our enum. So it's great because it's as if they're final. We can't make any changes like to this list, basically. So let's just select Earth, and this will be fine. Now let's create a method outside of
In this video, we're going to talk all about enums in Java. We'll go over what they are and when you should use them, and walk through some concrete examples of how you can implement them in your Java programs. My name's John. I'm thrilled to have you here with me. Let's get right to it. So what exactly is an enum? Enum is just short for enumeration. An enum is used when you have something that has a predefined set of values that don't change. A common example people use is like days of the week. They're always going to be the exact same 7 days, and they're never going to change. So you might want to define in your code what those 7 days of the week are in a way that people just can't add more days of the week, because that just wouldn't make sense. So using that example, let's go ahead and create that enum for days of the week. The easiest way to do that in Eclipse is to just go ahead and right-click wherever you want that enum to be and go to New. And this is how you usually would create a class, but instead we're going to pick enum. Just like a class, you can name it whatever you want, but we're going to name it days of the week. And hit finish, and there you go. You can see it looks an awful lot like a class, but instead of public class days of the week, it says public enum days of the week. So now we have the shell of our enum, but now how do we go about listing the set of valid days of the week? Well, we can just do it right here in a comma-separated list. So we can just say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, etc. We do have to end our comma-separated list with a semicolon. A couple things to note here though. Although it's totally valid to have these days of the week enum entries as all lowercase, it's typically the convention to have these in all uppercase. In Eclipse, there's actually a cool shortcut for making text uppercase, and it's just Control-Shift-X. By the way, check out this video here if you want even more awesome Eclipse shortcuts. So how do you go about actually using these values? Back in our main method, we can create an object of type days of the week, just like we could for any other type of object. So days of the week, day. So what exactly is an enum? Enum is just short for enumeration. An enum is used when you have something that has a predefined set of values that don't change. A common example people use is like days of the week. They're always In this video, we're going to go over all the very best Eclipse shortcuts that you can use to be a faster Java programmer. There are some of these that once you see them in action, you'll never code the same way again. My name's John. I'm a lead Java software engineer, and I love sharing what I've learned in a clear, understandable way. So if you'd like more, in this video, we're going to talk all about enums in Java. We'll find a set of values that don't change. A common example people use is like days of the week. They're always going to be the exact same 7 days, and they're never going to change. So you might want to define in your code what those 7 days of the week are in a way that people just can't add more days of the week, because that just wouldn't make sense. So using that example, let's go ahead and create that enum for days of the week. The easiest way to do that in Eclipse is to just go ahead and right-click wherever you want that enum to be and go to New. And this is how you usually would create a class, but instead we're going to pick enum. Just like a class, you can name it whatever you want, but we're going to name it days of the week. And hit finish, and there you go. You can see it looks an awful lot like a class, but instead of public class days of the week, it says public enum days of the week. So now we have the shell of our enum, but now how do we go about listing the set of valid days of the week? Well, we can just do it right here in a comma-separated list. So we can just say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, etc. We do have to end our comma-separated list with a semicolon. A couple things to note here though. Although it's totally valid to have these days of the week enum entries as all lowercase, it's typically the convention to have these in all uppercase. In Eclipse, there's actually a cool shortcut for making text uppercase, and it's just Control-Shift-X. X. By the way, check out this video here if you want even more awesome Eclipse shortcuts. So how do you go about actually using these values? Back in our main method, we can create an object of type days of the week, just like we could for any other type of object. So days of the week, day equals, you might be thinking, we'll say, okay, new days of the week. But if we try and do that with an enum, Java's going to give us an error. Cannot instantiate the type days of the week. That's one thing that's different about enums than any other typical Java class. Because an enum is intended to be a predefined set of values, you can't use the new keyword to just create new values. So what you'll be doing is just using the existing values. So you'll just say days of the week dot, and then you have your choice of any of those days of the week to use. Let's say we wanted to pick Thursday. So now this day variable has the value of Thursday. And you can use this variable in your code similar to how you would use any other type of variable. For example, you could say if the day equals days of the week dot Thursday, print out, yay, it's almost Friday. And if we run our code, of course, since the day we created was Thursday, it prints out, yay, it's almost Friday. All enum classes in Java actually extend from the java.lang.enum class. You don't have to put extends enum or anything here. Java just does that automatically. But because it extends the enum class, it gives you some built-in functionality that's pretty cool. For example, if you wanted to get all of the possible values of that enum, you can just say days of the week dot values. This actually returns an array of all the possible days of the week. So if we wanted to do something like print them all out, we can just do a simple for each loop. So for each days of the week, call it my day. So this will loop through every possible value in our days of the week enum. So all you have to do is print out my day inside that loop, and we can see it prints out all the possible values of our enum. But there's even more really cool things you can do with your enums. For this example, I've created an enum of cereals. We've got Captain Crunch, Fruit Loops, Reese's Puffs, and Cocoa Puffs. Real quickly though, one thing I like to do with my enums is put each enum entry on a different line like this. I just think it makes your enums a little bit more readable. Plus now there's more room for my beautiful face here in the corner. Just like your regular Java classes, your enums can have fields. So what we can do is add a field here like an int. Let's call it level of deliciousness. And we can also create a cereals constructor that takes in a value for that field of deliciousness. In this constructor, we would just set this dot level of deliciousness to be equal to the level of deliciousness passed in. But now you can see we have an error for each of these. That's because now in order to create each cereal enum, we have to give it the level of deliciousness. We can pass that in here as a parameter at each one of these declarations. So let's go between 0 and 100. Captain Crunch would be like a 50. Fruit Loops I like a little more. Let's say that's like a 60. Reese's Puffs though, probably my favorite. Let's do a straight up 100. And Cocoa Puffs about a 75. And now we can save that, and back in our main code, we can get any of those cereals level of deliciousness by just calling cereals dot whichever one we're interested in. Let's say Fruit Loops, and say Fruit Loops dot level of deliciousness. And we can just print that out if we want. And we get 60, which was the level of deliciousness of Fruit Loops. What you'll probably want to do with these fields is make them final so that they can't be changed for each entry. So why would you want to do that? Well, if you don't have final, what somebody can do, they can change that value, and that's probably not something you want to allow. So they can say cereals.Fruit Loops dot level of deliciousness equals 107. And we can see that that change actually does take effect. So somebody can go in and just change Fruit Loops to be a level of deliciousness of 107. Now Fruit Loops are good, don't get me wrong, but they're not 107 good. So this isn't something we want to allow. So to make it so that value can't be changed once it's set, we just make this final, and then back in our main code, we can see that we get an error when we try to change that value. So making this field final stops the Fruit Loop fanboys from being able to mess things up. And you're not limited to just one field here, you can have more if you like. So you might also want something like final double price. All you have to do is just add that as another parameter to your constructor and pass in a value for that new field in each declaration here. If you like this video or learned something, please let me know by hitting the like button. Be sure to check out these other videos here to keep on learning. I also have a full Java course available in a link down in the description if you're interested. Oh man, I spelled Captain Crunch wrong. I am ashamed. When you got started programming in Java and began working with data structures, you probably first learned about arrays. And then a little bit later on, you probably also learned about array lists. But it's super easy to get them confused. When are you supposed to use one versus the other? What are the differences in how you create it, add things to it, remove things from it? We're going to talk all about all of that in this video. And then I'll tell you exactly which one I use and recommend that you use the vast majority of the time and why. Hi, I'm John, and if this is your first time watching this channel, I put up a brand new Java lesson video every single week. It could be a lesson on a Java concept or a full coding tutorial where I program something beginning to end. So please be sure to like and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the video every week. And a sincere thanks to those of you who do take the time to like and subscribe. It's the only way this channel grows, so I really do appreciate it. As always, the full source with all the examples for this video is available in a link down in the description, so go and get it. So let's get right into it. Arrays and array lists. So when would you use any of these at all? Well, typically an array or an array list, either one, are used when you have just a group, a collection of the same types of objects, and you just want to hold a bunch of them. You can have an array of just numbers, maybe a list of cards in a deck, or even, look, an array of string arguments to pass to your main method. And if you've wondered what that's all about, that string array args and the main method declaration and every single Java program you've made ever, be sure to check out this video I made all about that main method. It describes exactly what that string array is used for and how you can use it in your own programs. But anyway, let's say for your purposes you want to create an array of strings. Let's say you just have a list of your friends. So you want to create an array that holds all of your friends' names, right? So here's how you would do that if you wanted to use an array. You would say string and then open close bracket. That indicates that this is an array of strings. So that's just Java's type declaration. And then after that, of course, you want to have your variable name, just like you do for any variable. So here, since we're going to create an array of friends' names, let's just call it friends array. And then you say equals, and we need to initialize this array. Well, there's a couple of ways you can do it. The first way is just that you can say new string array, but you have to also give it the capacity. So notice that right now Eclipse is giving us an error that says variable must provide either dimension expressions or an array initializer. Well, basically what it is saying is you need to give this a size. Arrays in Java have a fixed size, which means that after you've declared your array, it can't grow or shrink. It has to stay that exact size. So here we have to start out and declare its size. So let's just say we give it size 4. So this array can hold 4 elements inside of it. And since that size is fixed for arrays, that array will never ever grow or shrink from 4. It will always have exactly 4 elements. Some of those elements might be null, and actually when a string array starts out like this, all 4 elements will be null until we set them, but it'll never contain fewer or more than exactly 4 elements. You can also initialize the values in your array right away when you declare, meaning you can fill up your entire array with values within your declaration. So to do that, you just do string array, same thing, friends array, since we need a different name here, so we'll just call it friends array 2, and then say equals, and then in curly brackets, curly braces, you just put in all of the values you want to have in your array separated by commas. So we've got strings here. So let's just say we've got John, yours truly. I think I could be my own friend. Chris, Eric, and Luke. So notice that when we did it this way, we didn't have to specify a capacity. That's because we have an implied capacity by the values that we set. So since we're setting exactly 4 values, the capacity of this array will be exactly 4. And again, because arrays can't grow or shrink, it'll always have exactly 4 values in it. Okay, so that's how you declare and initialize an array. So how do you do it with an array list? So to make your array list, you'll say array list, and in angle brackets, you'll put in the data type that you want to hold in this array list. So of course here, we want it to be of strings, so we say string, and then we put in your variable name, just like we did above, and we'll call this one friends array list. And then we say equals, and now we need to instantiate this array list. So to do that, we do it like we do a lot of objects. We say new array list, and then we do something a little weird here. We have what's called a diamond operator. It's just the full set of open and close angle brackets, and then an open and close parentheses, and then a semicolon. So this open and close angle brackets is often called a diamond operator. In older versions of Java, you had to specify the data type you wanted to hold in your array all over again here in this part. Then in later versions of Java, they said, hey, that's kind of silly. You're already specifying it here. Java can just infer that you still mean that this is an array list of strings. And so now you can just use this which is called a diamond operator. So now we do have to add our imports for array lists. So I'm using Eclipse, so I can just say Control-Shift-O and organize my import. But if you're not using any special IDE, this is the import you will need, java.util.ArrayList. So notice I didn't have to specify a size like I did for the arrays. But here in the array list, I didn't have to specify a size. And the reason for that is array lists do not have a fixed size. That is one of the big benefits of array lists over arrays. Arrays always have a fixed size that you cannot change, but array lists will dynamically either expand or contract their size automatically by however many elements you are adding or removing from it. So it's pretty handy that way. So it can make programming with them a lot easier. And you can, just like we filled up the array with an explicit list of values here, we can also do something similar with array lists. So what we do is array list, string. This part's all the same. We give it a name, friends, array list 2 equals new array list, open and close angle brackets, and then in the parentheses here, you'll type in arrays dot as list, and then you'll pass into this arrays as list method just a comma separated list of the values you want to have in your array list. But no curly braces here, just the values separated by commas. John, Chris, Eric, Luke. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move some of this down to a new line so you can see all of it. Okay, so instead of just saying new array list, which doesn't fill up any values at all, you could say new array list, then you pass in arrays.asList, and then explicitly the list of all the values you want to have in there. There are some other ways you can do it, such as only having this arrays.asList part, but that actually gives you what's called an immutable list. It gives you a list that you can't change, so you couldn't ever add, remove, or change any values inside of it. Doing it this way with the new array list and then passing in the arrays.asList call gives you a list that is mutable, that you can mess around with and do whatever you
Bom, rapaziada. Para a live aqui já. Fui dormir. Cansado. Não valeu aí, já. 19º dia. Amanhã faz 20 dias que tô estudando, fazendo live. Tô indo bem, tô indo bem. Tô estudando um pouco menos esses últimos dias. Que tá muito cansativo lá no trabalho. Até daqui a pouco. Valeu.